You are listening to The World As I See It podcast. 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 As I See It podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The World As I See It podcast. I'm so excited to get into these listener-submitted questions. If you have a question that you would like me to answer or an idea for a future episode, you can email me at theworldasIseeitpodcast@gmail.com, or you can put them in the comments below. So these questions were all submitted by one listener. The first thing they asked me was, how do you interact with social media while being blind? And let me tell you, it's a topic with a lot of ups and downs. When it comes to social media, my experience really depends on, we can put it this way, how friendly each app is with voiceover. I'd say Facebook and YouTube, they are my best friends when it comes to social media because they make my life so easy. I can make a post on Facebook, I can add a photo, and I can scroll through my feed without any trouble at all. The buttons, they're just right where they're supposed to be. And everything is clearly labeled, and it just makes sense. The same goes for YouTube. Uploading these podcast episodes or finding a new channel to subscribe to, it's a straightforward process. It feels like they actually want me to be there. They want me to use those platforms. Then there's TikTok, which it's like that one friend who just doesn't get it. It's the least accessible app out there, and using it is a whole process. I have to turn voiceover off just to scroll through videos, which it's basically like a guessing game. And if I want to like a video, I have to turn voiceover back on and then try to find the button. And sometimes the buttons are not clearly labeled, which, it's a bit like trying to find a needle in a digital haystack. The biggest challenge for me, though, is when the video, it's just music. I'm left sitting there thinking, okay, what's happening? It's a mystery. I do have this app that describes the videos, but it's a whole process to have it describe videos, and it just takes up time. So sometimes I will just have somebody tell me, or I'll just scroll past the video. Overall, I feel like, I've found a way to make social media work, but some apps are definitely more of a roller coaster ride than others. That was a great question. Speaking of things that can be a bit of a roller coaster, they also asked, when you're in a crowd and it's a little noisy, is it overwhelming, or do you find it interesting and exciting? That is a very interesting question, and honestly, it's a definite it depends situation. Being in a crowd at an amusement park, it can be a sensory overload because there's so much going on at once. Food, there's loud music, people screaming on rides, and it can be hard to focus on a single sound. And sometimes it's exhausting when I'm trying to have a conversation with my family and it's hard to hear because there's so much going on. But I do love amusement parks. Don't get me wrong. Another challenging thing that I, find very challenging is not knowing if somebody is talking to me. In a loud crowd, people often, they don't say my name or give me an indication that they're speaking to me. So I just might be standing there awkwardly, not knowing if I'm supposed to respond, if that was for me. So that's why sometimes crowds can be overwhelming because, I don't know if they're talking to me. it's a bit of a guessing game, and I'd rather just avoid, I'd rather just avoid that. But I do love amusement parks. It is very fun for me. But sometimes, and I don't always get a sensory overload at a amusement park. It's just sometimes. It depends on what amusement park I'm at and how many people are there. On the other hand, a quieter crowd, like at school, like a school event, it isn't overwhelming at all. I actually kind of like it. The sounds of people talking and just general chatter, it can be interesting, and it lets me know that I'm not alone and that I'm a part of, the world around me and a part of the conversation. Now for something a little more fun and personal. They also asked me, what are some of your favorite hobbies? I've got a few hobbies that I really love. I'm a big music lover. I love music, especially when I'm doing homework or, I just like to listen to music. I also love to read. I spend a lot of time reading audiobooks. I don't really like the way the screen reader reads it. I love reading audiobooks more than I like to just read a book, because I feel like if it's a very good narrator, I can travel in my mind and I feel like I'm a part of the story. I could get lost in a good book just as easily as anyone else can. I also really enjoy spending time with my friends and family, just laughing and having good conversations. It's so important to me. And these hobbies are a huge part of my life, and I enjoy them so much. Now, for our last two questions from this listener. First, they asked, what kinds of things do you imagine in your mind during the day? That's a very thoughtful question. I think about imagination in a few different ways. And honestly, it's kind of hard to explain, but I will try. So when it comes to knowing a place, like my own house, I don't really have to use my mind to navigate any. It's just like second nature. But in a less familiar place, like my school, I use a mental map to get around along with my cane. My mind is constantly creating this mental map of the space, which helps me figure out where to turn and where I am. When it comes to my classes, my imagination works a little differently. If we are looking at models in like science, I imagine things, with pictures in my head. I'm a huge fan of models that I can feel, because that's the easiest way to imagine what something looks like. But if that's not available, I also love it when they describe a picture to me. It's like they're painting a picture with words. If they describe the colors and the shape in a really clear and detailed way, I can imagine it in my head. For example, if someone had a graphic on their shirt, they describe the letters, the colors, and the font, I can create a mental image of what that looks like. And then there are voices. I can kind of imagine what a person may look like just based off of their voice. It's not always accurate by any means, but it's a huge part of how I, meet people. It's like when you listen to the radio, how you hear a person talking and you just kind of get an impression of what they might look like. That's what I do. You can get so much information from someone's voice. I can even get an idea of, their body language and whether they're having a good day just from the tone of their voice. If a person's voice sounds scary to me, it's kind of like my own little internal alarm system goes off in my brain. Even if the person's not scary and they just sound scary. But, I have to know the person. I have to be around them until I get to know them and realize that. It's a huge part of how my mind works. That was a fun question. Now for our last question. The listener asked, what would you say are some of your strengths? I feel like one of my biggest strengths is how social I am and my bubbly personality. I feel like I can make friends easily, and I feel like, I can start a conversation even if I don't know somebody very well and I can get to know them. I feel like my social skills, they are a huge part of who I am. And because I'm so social, I also feel like I'm a good listener. And I've been able to build really strong relationships with people in my life. I also think I have a lot of determination and a strong mindset. For example, so my first half marathon ever, which I didn't train for, by the way, and definitely don't recommend doing that. After about mile 9, my feet hurt so bad, and I had a huge blisters. My body wanted to stop more than anything, but in my mind, I was just like, I can't give up. I only have about 3 miles left. And because I was so determined, I finished it. And that experience, it really showed me that even when something is a huge challenge, I don't give up easily. It's a strength that has helped me with so many other things in life. I've always believed that you can learn something from, anyone you meet. Because of my love for talking and listening, I've had the chance to meet, amazing people and have great conversations. I'm not afraid to get to know somebody, and that's helped me grow as a person. So, my social skills and my determination are definitely strengths I'm proud of. Well, that's all the questions for this episode. I hope you enjoyed those answers, and thank you so much for sending them in. I love hearing your questions, and I'm always looking forward for ideas for future episodes. So please keep sending in your questions. If you have a question you would like me to answer on the next episode, you can email me at theworldasIseeitpodcast@gmail.com, or you can put them in the comments below. I promise you I will not get offended. So ask, what's something you've always wondered about? Stay curious and keep listening, and I'll see you on the next episode.
You've been listening to the World as I See It podcast.